Recessions highlight hardships, but they also provide many different opportunities and opportunities that you have to help your family survive and thrive through a recession. Now, this can be anything related to how to transfer money correctly to those that you care about at the intended time with the least amount of tax impact. Or it could even come back down to how you can income plan through a recession. And all of that can be taken care of with great estate planning. Principle number 1, take care of the basics. Going through a recession actually can be very hard and prolonged period of time that you need to get through. Now, the estate planning is no different today during a recession than what it is when we are actually growing in the economy. There's no difference. We have to do some of the same planning and taking care of some of the documents that are needed today, tomorrow, and in the future are going to be vitally important for you. Now, some of those documents would include a will. Now, a will is something that's going to direct the probate court. And whether you are going to be going through probate or not, it's good to have a will in place. You see, there may be some things that crop up right at the end of life that you may have been unintentionally leaving as part of the probate court, or maybe even inadvertently forgotten as part of transferring into trust. Or maybe this was just something that you absolutely wanted to go through probate. You see, there's actually many different reasons why you would want to go through probate. But on the same lines, there's many other reasons why you may not. But having that will in place is going to be vitally important to really show your wishes, to show what you want the probate court to do with your assets. So what that means then is that as the probate court goes through your assets and the ones that are going through probate, the will is going to help them to direct them to the intended people at the correct time and hopefully have done well with the least amount of tax impact. That's what the will is going to do. Now, outside of that, there's many other aspects of just the general structure of your estate plan that you should get correct. One that comes down to power of attorney as well. You see, a power of attorney is going to be there, and there's different types of power of attorneys, but this will be there in case something happens to you and you are unable to really talk about and discuss the different types of investments you have or your wishes while you're still living. So there's ones that spring into effect if something happens to you and you become incapacitated. Now there's others that will be there until you become incapacitated. So knowing which power of attorneys are going to be correct and for you is going to be dependent on your overall plan and what you want. But having power of attorneys in place will give others the ability to make some decisions in case something is not right with you, in case something has happened to you, and you know that you can be taken care of and your family can be taken care of as well. Now, obviously, speaking of you, we want to make sure that you have your wishes with respect to healthcare as well. And that's where a healthcare directive comes into place. And now these are end-of-life care type of thoughts and ideas that you can have written down and will actually help direct the doctors as to how to provide care in the event something ever happened to you. So I know this is not something that is generally thought about in a recession, but is one that we should have in place no matter what. So the will, power of attorney, and healthcare directive are very important when it comes to how to direct your assets. Now, not everything is going to be going through and used by those documents, but this is a great starting point as part of your estate plan. And in a recession, remember, that's no different than other times. So we need to have this item buttoned up in the same way that we do the other elements of your overall estate plan. Principle number 2, look at your debts and your creditors. Debt is often thought about as something to avoid, and many people think of debt as something that is a hindrance, not a help. Now, there is some truth to that, but when you talk about growing your wealth, when you talk about growing the investments that you have, debt can be used very well in order to help fund, say, things like real estate, can help fund aspects of your business, or if used right, can actually help fund some elements of your retirement. So there's really good reasons for debt. Now the problem arises when you actually start to use debt in a way that may not be very advantageous to you. And what I mean by that is that maybe there are some variable debt and interest rates that you have out there. Maybe there's some debt that has higher interest rates than what you are wanting or willing to pay. Well, all of that can come back down to creditors that can start knocking on your door more and more during a recession. You see, you're not the only one that may be feeling the pinch of a recession. And whether you are or not, many others are. And this time period is when a lot of other individuals start saying, who are the ones that owe me money? And how can I get that money back so that I can start to reduce the risk that I have? So keep that in mind, that even though you have debt outstanding, that it may be good debt, now would be the time to start taking a look at maybe ones that you want to be paying off, maybe even paying off sooner, to reduce your overall exposure to risk and to reduce the overall debt load that you have so you can get through a recession in a lot better manner. Now, obviously, take a look at your investments, take a look at the assets that you have, and it may not be appropriate to pay off the debts. It may be appropriate to pay down some of them, but this is a great tool and way to start working on getting yourself through a recession. And we start looking at the overall estate plan, remember that there are some debts that may go away if something ever happened to you. But there's also some debts that are going to go along to your heirs as well. And knowing which are which, knowing which ones you can be really starting to offload and remove from your estate, it's going to be vitally important to help you get through this period of time. Hey, it's Nathan Krampe, and I create these videos because there's a lot of planning that goes into your overall estate plan as well as your wealth plan. Now, what we're talking about today with respect to your estate plan comes about just because of recessions, but that means that there's going to be many other elements that you need to do with your overall wealth plan to make sure you're taken care of. That's why I created this channel. So go ahead, like this video so others can find it as well, and subscribe to this channel so that you can be kept up to date with future videos about your overall wealth plan. Principle number 3, reduce the risk in different investments. We've spent time talking about other elements of your estate plan already, but let's talk about one element that you probably are pretty well aware of: the fact that assets go down in price during a recession. Well, what can we do about that? The best thing then is to take a look at, obviously, the assets and figure out if there's something that you want to make changes to. Now, the changes I want to talk about today are pertinent when it comes to the trusts that you have, as well as any life insurance and even some of the real estate that you may have as well. So let's start with the trusts. Now, trusts can be either revocable, meaning you can make changes to them, or irrevocable, meaning you cannot make changes to them. And depending on the type of trust you have, may actually allow you to make some adjustments to your overall investments. Now, if that's the case, you may want to take a look at them to see if it's going to be appropriate to reduce the level of risk just to get through this period of time. Now, again, it comes back down to how these trusts have been created, and some may have the element to have capital losses that can be passed through to you and to offset some of your taxes, and some may not. So taking a look at those and those elements of the investments you have in the trust are going to be vitally important to help get through this period of time, especially if you're taking income, because maybe as such that you're taking the principal. Well, that's going to be quite different than if you're taking income off of the distributions that have come from the trust, or maybe some of the interest that's paid by the investments themselves. So all of that's going to be really a great thing to look into and to make sure you know where the money is coming from, or how the investments are invested, the assets are invested throughout that trust. Now, the other element then can come back down to some of the life insurance you have. And the cash value can be growing sometimes with the stock market, especially if it's a variable type of a life insurance policy. Well, life insurance, obviously we can have many different uses for that, whether it's to pay estate taxes, whether it's to help improve the overall wealth of your spouse upon your passing, or even your children. You see, there's many different elements and uses for life insurance. But if you are looking at the cash value and wanting that for not only yourself, but maybe for your children, or an additional amount that you're going to be giving to your spouse above and beyond the insurance that you've already had, it may actually be worth it then to make some slight adjustments to the investments there as well. So again, these are some things and some elements to be looking at and how you can be reducing risk to get through a recession. Well, there's another element here as well. Many of you have real estate as part of your overall investment portfolio. And done correctly, real estate can be an incredible opportunity you have to grow your investments and your overall wealth. Well, structures come back into place here as well. And remember, when we're talking about creditors, that can be opened up, and creditors can be opened up as part of your real estate, but they can also be opening you for unnecessary liabilities as well. So placing these real estate investments in their own tax structure, think like an LLC or an S Corp, those can be very useful to help limit the overall liability those real estate assets may have. Now again, this is something that is very pertinent to you and may be something that you want to do, but if it's done incorrectly, could actually hurt you. So that's why make sure that you are talking to a CPA that has the knowledge behind real estate to make sure that you can be putting assets into the correct type of tax entities if necessary, and that they can be using to grow your investments in the future and really trying to reduce the risk today. Principle number 4, make some gifts. Gifting is such a great strategy, not only in good times, but also during a recession. You see, for this year, 2023, you can be gifting up to $17,000 per individual. So you can gift $17,000 to, say, your son or your daughter, and your spouse can be gifting the same $17,000 to that same individual. So you can actually have up to $34,000 between you and your spouse that you can be gifting to one individual without having to file a gift tax return. Now that's great news, and especially if the investments have gone down in value because of the recession, because you can gift more of those assets. So if you have an investment that has gone down in value, well, you can be gifting more shares. And as that comes up in value in the good times, you have actually been able to help grow the wealth of your, maybe say, son or daughter better than if you had gifted at another point in time. So gifting can be a great strategy. Now also remember that you have just slightly less than 13 million as an exemption that you have for federal estate taxes as well. So you have that in 2023 is $12.92 million that you can be gifting, and your spouse has that as well. Now what that also means then is that, generally speaking, most likely you are not going to be owing estate tax. Now obviously if you are, there's other elements and ways that we can start reducing your overall estate through the use of trust and life insurance to make sure that you can either pay the taxes or that you can actually reduce and remove that money out of the estate. But when it comes to how to do that correctly, that's where gifting comes in. And gifting during a recession can actually be an incredible opportunity you have to bless the charities that you care about, as well as bless the ones you love. Principle number 5, look at your different types of insurances. Your insurances are needed, and especially in a recession. You see, many times, whether you have a second house that you're not going to as much, whether you have, say, an RV that you're not using this year, or a boat that may be in storage, you have a lot of different toys that you maybe have that you're not going to be using over the next year or so. And many people decide, hey, let's start uninsuring some of those vehicles, some of those things that I'm not using, just because of the fact that I'm not using them. Well, that can actually open yourself up to a lot of different liabilities. So when we're talking about your overall estate plan, it actually comes back down to property casualty as well. And when we take a look at the ways that people work in a recession, sometimes it's not necessarily to the point that they're being fully honest. And sometimes desperate people do desperate things in a recession. And that can come back and open you up to unforeseen liabilities. So what I'm talking about here is maybe you are inadvertently, without even your awareness of what's going on, being sued because of something that another individual is claiming against you. Now, whether that is something that you actually did, like maybe on ice, inadvertently hit someone with your car, or maybe you had nothing to do with it and someone decided that they wanted to hurt themselves on your property just because of the fact they know that you have more wealth than they do. Well, that's where the insurances can step in and help to insure you against something like that happening. And again, just remember that desperate people do desperate things in recessions, and especially if their back is into a corner, so to speak. And that's where the insurances can come in to help protect your overall estate plan, to help protect your overall wealth. And that's what we want. Now, whether it's your second home, whether it's any aircraft that you have, boats, whether it's cars that maybe you don't even use, make sure you have the correct coverage. And yes, you may want to reduce it. That's perfectly fine. And you can talk to your insurance agent about that. But if that's going to open yourself up to unforeseen liabilities, that is a risk that you may not want, especially in a recession. Principle number 6, remove assets from your estate. In a recession, you're going to want as many assets as possible just to get you through, especially when it comes to assets that produce income. But maybe there are some assets that you don't need. Maybe there are some ones that you actually want to remove that liability so it doesn't come back against you personally. Or maybe there is other types of assets that you don't want creditors to be able to touch. Now that's where removing them out of your estate can be very important and very impactful, not only for your children, your grandchildren, but maybe some other charities that are out there as well that you want to be generous to. Well, that's where removing them out of your estate can be very helpful and beneficial. And to do that correctly, there's many different ways you can utilize trusts as a part of that. You can utilize gifting strategies as a part of that. But look to that in order to start reducing the risk that you have associated with those investments, especially if they've opened yourself up to liabilities and creditors unnecessarily, or the reverse, that you don't want the creditors to come back against those assets. That's where a good gifting and strategy to remove those assets out of your estate can come into play. And that alone can be very beneficial in a recession. Now, here's the caveat to that. This is generally a permanent removal. So if we remove them today, they're not going to be available tomorrow as well. But that may not be an issue, especially if it's done well. This may afford you a great opportunity to remove them out of your estate, not have them as part of your taxable estate, and be able to bless the ones and the entities that you care about the most. And a special bonus principle just for you, look at the income that you can be producing from your estate. Recessions really do highlight the fact that assets go down in price. But what about your income? We want to make sure that your income does not suffer even in a recession. Well, when we talk about Social Security, that's a guaranteed stream of income that you may have started already. Maybe you have a pension from an old employer, or maybe you have a defined benefit plan that you have built up with your business over the years. All of those can be a guaranteed source of income. Now, there's other types of income streams that are out there as well. Ones for annuities that can be generating some guaranteed streams of income. But what if there are other strategies? And that is something that there are, especially when we pair that with your estate plan. So there are great trusts that are out there that can actually be producing some income streams for you as well. Now, some of those are charitable trusts in nature. Other those are grantor trusts in nature. And the one that's going to be appropriate for you is the one that's going to really fulfill the wishes that you want. But know this, there are ways that you can be removing the assets from your estate, from those creditors, be blessing some of the entities and the individuals that you care about most, and still make sure that you have a stream of income coming in. Now, all of that is really imperative when it comes to great estate planning. And that is why when we take a look at everything, we have to look at it cumulatively. So we start with the documents that are the wills and the trusts, things like that. Then we go into some of the planning on the investments, and then ultimately we end up making sure that we have enough income through a recession as well. Now all of that is great planning, but know that if done correctly and if done well, you can have your cake and you can eat it too. Because you made it this far in the video, I want to give you a special opportunity. You see, many people take a look at their overall estate plan and think that's just it. But it comes back down to your wealth plan and how your estate plan is used as part of your wealth plan and how you can be growing your wealth today, tomorrow, and in the future. That's vitally important. Now, when it comes back down to that, many times you have gaps that exist. And to receive a special second opinion on those gaps that exist as part of your overall wealth plan, I've highlighted a link below this video. Click on that link for a special one-on-one consultation where we'll be going through what I call a discovery meeting and really just taking a look at what's important to you. Then we're going to be going through a gaps analysis and taking a look at if there's any gaps that exist in your overall wealth plan. And then we're going to take a look at ways and strategies to fill those gaps. That is all part of the special one-on-one consultation that I'm offering you just for watching this video. So do me a favor, click the link below, and what that will do is bring you to our contact page. Now there's going to be a way that you can input your information, so your name, phone number, things like that. But there's also going to be a message section. And put in that message one-on-one. One-on-one. And what that will do is let us know that you watch this video and that you would like to have a second opinion, a complimentary second opinion on your overall wealth plan and to see if there's any gaps that exist. For more tips and tricks, I've highlighted this video just for you.